Newton's first law states that an object persists in a state of rest unless acted upon by another force. Nowhere is this more true than with our data. Oceans of insight lying dormant, still, unengaged. And when idleness is the enemy of possibility, we revolutionize, we rethink, we transform. Because today's data doesn't just reside, it lives.
It's the spark that makes you feel alive. Feel alive. Feel alive. It's the spark that makes you feel alive. Feel alive. Feel alive. It's the spark that makes you feel
Micron is where data lives.
Hello, everybody. It's really my great pleasure to be here to talk to you all about 5G and the 5G ecosystem and how we can all together unleash the whole power of the 5G ecosystem. My name is Raj Talluri. I'm with Micron Technology, and I'm responsible for the mobile business there. So, 5G is here. 5G is actually here upon us. It's been here for about a year, ramping up fast, more and more 5G devices getting connected every day. And, one of the key reasons 5G is happening so fast is because of all the investments that are being made by many, many different people in the 5G ecosystem, from the carriers to chip vendors like us who make chips, to actually the people who make the infrastructure and our customers, both in smartphones, IoT devices, auto, and so on, have been making a lot of investments to enable this 5G technology transition happen really, really fast. In fact, it's happening rapidly, and particularly with the digitization of the entire world, we believe that by 2025, there will be 55 billion devices connected. Now, that's a large number, and all these devices will be generating data and lots and lots of data. In fact, one of the estimates I saw says that by 2025, these devices will create 179 zettabytes of data. Now, to give you a feel for how much data that is, that's actually the amount of data that's equivalent to all the 7.7 billion people in this world watching 4K video for 137 days straight. That is how much data that is. And that's going to be generated, by these devices that are connected. Now, when that happens, you need a massive demand for chips, a massive demand for semiconductors. And what I'm going to talk today is about what that means to all of us, the kind of applications that will happen, and kind of business opportunity in front of us. Let's talk about 5G and AI. When these two technologies come together, the possibilities are really limitless. 5G is not only about extremely high speed and high bandwidth connections, much higher, much faster than 4G, but it also has this very interesting technology that enables extreme low latency happen. Now, why is low latency important? I think bandwidth and high speed we can all relate to. You can download videos faster, you can have a lot more content, and so on. Now, latency is actually very important too. And let me try to motivate that with a couple of use cases. Let's say you're wearing an AR, VR headset. And when you're wearing this headset, you're looking around and looking at different things. If the content is coming off of a 5G network, if that data doesn't come in fast enough, and when, let's say, you make a move and the information goes up to the network and you get a new scene comes down based on where your head motion is now, if the latency is not low, you're going to get jagged. You're going to get jaggies. That means there's going to be a noticeable or perceptible lag between the time you moved and the time scene changes. And that's going to cause a fairly unpleasant experience. So latency is extremely important in those use cases. Another use case you can think of is autonomous driving. Let's say you're driving in a car and your car is making a lot of decisions locally, but every so often it needs to reach into the cloud and get some information that it needs. Now, if there's not very short latency, that is going to cause the automobile from not being able to make that decision in a split second time. So latency is extremely important, just as high bandwidth is important in 5G. Now, when these connected devices that have low latency and high bandwidth generate a lot of data, the amount of data that's going to be out there when 5G launches is tremendous. Now, this data is what makes AI happen. When you have that much data available, many interesting use cases can now be launched. These are use cases that happen in smart cities, in autonomous navigation, in smartphones, in many uses of this technology. Now, AI and 5G together will enable something else, which I'd like to call as contextual awareness. What that means is the smart devices that you use in this new world of 5G and AI will be contextually aware. That means they're aware of its user, what the user wants to do at a given point of time, and be able to suggest or even inform the user what's coming up next, all with the intention of making your life just a lot more comfortable. Now, you can imagine having these connected devices with you that automatically figures out based on your calendar what time you need to wake up, gives you a nice alarm clock, wakes you up, and then you have your coffee already made and ready, and then your right music is playing, your car pulls up into your driveway, you get into your car, it autonomously navigates to your workplace, changes the lanes, and makes your drive that much more comfortable, tells you what's coming up during the day, so you're ready. These are not science fiction use cases. We already see instances of this in your smartphones that actually tell you every so often that, hey, you should leave now to make your meeting. But this is taking them to the next level when 5G and AI kind of use cases happen. Now, what I want to talk now is about a few more use cases that 5G and AI will enable. And I've kind of categorized them into three kind of large buckets. One is the kind of use cases that happen in smart cities. These are areas that we live in to make our life a little bit more comfortable in the cities. The other one is entertainment. Entertainment, AR, VR, is another use case that 5G and AI will enable. And the third one is personalized healthcare, personalized lifestyle and healthcare. Many applications in each of these areas, but let me pick a couple, to kind of motivate the kind of things that will happen when 5G and AI launch at full blast. Imagine a smart city where you have the electrical power grid, and when all these different electric meters and all the different hubs in this power grid are all connected and all have intelligence on them at the edge and have these extremely low latency 5G modems, it's really amazing what we can do in terms of distributing the power load across the city, making sure that no blackouts happen, always making sure that you have optimal power distribution. Similarly with water, one thing we find in many cities in many parts of the world is a lot of water is actually wasted. And one of the reasons the water is wasted is in a lot of these junctions or connections, there's some water always leaking. And it's very difficult to figure out where that is without sending a person out there and looking at that and figuring out what to do about it. But when 5G happens with this very low power, modems that we're able to make, they can just wake up and send a little signal whenever they detect something is leaking, and automatically we can send people to the right place to fix that. So many more use cases like that, from traffic, making sure that the highways are smart so that you can actually navigate through them easily, making sure that the cars are connected to each other and to the infrastructure around them. So the future of a 5G AI connected smart city is really a great place that will be very comfortable for all of us to live. Now, let me switch gears and talk about entertainment. A lot of us, really love spending our, discretionary time or leisure time in entertainment. Many different forms of entertainment. One thing you can think about, for example, is watching a live sports. A lot of people like to watch football or tennis or so on. When you watch these things, and these broadcasts is now happening at a very high bandwidth, low latency 5G network, the true, promise of interactive television can happen. Now, what do I mean by that? You might all be familiar now when you watch sports, that every so often, let's say there's a moment in football where someone throws a ball and the wide receiver catches it, and then you get this 360-degree view of the camera panning around the receiver. How does that happen? The way that happens is many, many different cameras that are in the stadium. They're all recording the scene at the same time, and someone in the studio is making that 360-degree video and sending it to you. Now imagine if all those video feeds were sent simultaneously to your smart device. It could be smartphone, it could be tablet, it could be a TV, wherever you're watching it, or AR, VR headset. Now imagine you choose from which viewpoint you want to watch that. And the device automatically stitches a 360-degree view of that, and you can pick the viewpoint from which to watch. This really puts the viewer in the center of what they want to watch. That's the reason a lot of people go to live sporting events, because they can watch what they want to watch, not what broadcast to them. With 5G, these kind of immersive applications are going to happen. Let me switch to another one, which is a personalized, healthcare. Now, many of us now wear wearables, which actually, sense your heart rate or sense your blood pressure and so on. But if these wearables, are connected over 5G, connected to your smartphones, and have the power of AI in them, they could do a lot more than just monitor your vital signs. They could make suggestions and predictions to you on what you should do to make your life more safer and healthier. For example, if you had a great workout one day, maybe it'll tell you when you're at the dinner table what it's okay to eat. Or if something is kind of not going well with your system, they could immediately send a message to your doctor. So a lot of different things can happen when you have these 5G and AI use cases. Now, let me switch gears here and talk about semiconductors. After all, we are here at the Semi Conference. This 5G and AI era is not going to happen without tremendous innovation in chips. And we're all working on that. People who make modems, people who make application processors, people who make analog devices, people who make memories, people who make storage. The opportunity, the business opportunity for all of us in the semiconductor business is tremendous in this world when 5G happens. Some of the statistics, basically some of the data now shows by 2025, 3 to 4 years from now, there will be 667 billion is the total available market, $667 billion for the semiconductors. That's a huge number. Now, if you put that in context to today, the amount of flash memory storage that will be needed in 25 will be 3 times what's needed today. The amount of DRAM that's needed will be 2 times what's needed today in just a few years. And if you look at all the other devices, application processors, RF, analog devices, and so on, 2.5 times what's today. So it's a huge opportunity to really, really take advantage of for all of us in semiconductor space. Now, for our part at Micron, we are really working hard to not only serve the market today, but look into the future of what kind of products will be needed when 5G and AI launch in full steam. We are working on DDR4 today, DDR5, and DDR6 in the future. These are clearly the kind of memories that are needed in PCs, that are needed in cloud, that are needed in server. We're also working on GDDR6. This is a graphics memory, which is higher performance and much higher bandwidth needed for the gaming and AI workloads in the cloud. We're also working on LPDDR, which stands for low power DDR, both LPDDR5, LPDDR5X, in the future LPDDR6. This is the low power for battery operated devices, things like your smartphones, things like your IoT devices, things like your industrial IoT, things like the modems, things like that live in smart cities. We're spending a lot of time on that and really innovating on both power and performance on those devices. In addition to DRAMs, we spend a lot of time on making the right quality storage devices. Now, storage devices that go into SSDs, as the hard disk drives that we use in our daily life now transition into solid state drives. At Micron, we're working on making NVMe SSDs. We're also working on storage in embedded devices like smartphones, auto, and also in industrial IoT. Here, standards like universal flash storage, or UFS, and eMMC are very popular. There's a new standard called CXL, Compute Express Link, which is the way some of the future memories will be connected to many of the application processors. We're also spending a lot of time and energy on innovating in that space. Now, one thing to remember is as these devices get more complex and people start using more and more devices in their daily life, security is very important. Security of the device, security of your data, security of the usage of the device. So we spend a lot of time on a technology called Authenta, which is a security software system that lives on top of our memories to make all these devices very safe and secure. So in short, spending a lot of energy and a lot of innovations at Micron in both memory and storage. Now, here, what I want to talk about is the fact that while the opportunity for semiconductors is huge, we cannot make 5G happen without a large ecosystem of players working well and in concert. What do I mean by ecosystem of players? So when I talk about chips, these chips have to go into hardware platforms, boards, and systems. So the hardware system vendors need to enable that. And our partners, at Intel and Qualcomm and NVIDIA and MediaTek and all these chip companies have to also innovate and produce great processors that actually work with, memory and storage. Then there's a software that needs to run on top of that. Software from people like Google, software from people like Microsoft, and software from the many, many different application vendors that provide great application software that has to run in concert and on top of this software, these hardware platforms, so that to create that 5G applications and AI applications. Of course, our customers, the people who actually take all these innovations and build innovations on top of them and launch great products that all of us can buy. So really, to make this 5G world happen, it takes an orchestration of a whole bunch of willing and committed partners that I show in this slide. And we're all working together to make this happen, because the business opportunity for all of us in this new world is tremendous. Now, I am, as you can tell, super excited by 5G, not only because of the tremendous bandwidth and speed it's going to provide, but also for the extreme low latency that it's going to provide. But more importantly, the kind of applications and the kind of world that we get to live in and the kind of experiences we get to partake in when 5G and AI really, really take off. Now, I get asked this question many times, when I talk about 5G, Raj, what's the killer use case? I've always believed that when we build these great technologies, we don't really know the killer use case. And for example, I've been in this space for a while, and I remember the time when we actually put GPS in smartphones. We didn't know that Uber or Uber Eats or Lyft would be the killer use cases. We thought it'll be nice for people to know where they are and to have a location. We didn't know Google Maps would become so big and important. That is how I feel about 5G and AI. As we build these capabilities, as we build these technologies, as we enable this ecosystem of partners happen with the technology and with the advancements being made in AI, when these two come together, there are going to be tremendous number of applications and use cases, which we haven't even thought of today, but that will make the life of all of us a whole lot better and make the world a much more convenient place to live. And of course, tremendous business opportunity for all of us in this space. I want to thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to talk to you about 5G and AI and the opportunity for all of us in the semiconductor space to make this happen and to partake in the business. Thank you.